I think it's the way my imagination works. It needs some kind of catalyst like that. Now, in the Hummingbird Salamander, the latest novel, there's a little bit less of a speculative element, but it still leads up to one. And I'm not somebody who's really that interested in what if, but I am really interested in the psychological reality of living through these times and of finding these kinds of parallels that might be more speculative or uncanny, but help us understand the psychological truth of dealing with an unknown like climate crisis or other issues. And so I think that it's I don't know if it's a different kind of rewilding. It's just simply the way my imagination works. My mother is an artist, and I was really drawn to surreal art as a teenager and young adult. And so a lot of that and other media also influences me and probably influences the way that things come out. I remember the first short stories that I wrote, I thought they were pretty normal and just, kind of about everyday topics. My first readers, when they first read my first stories, were like, this is kind of cocked ass, right? so, and so I think it's just kind of hardwired into my point of view, and I think it's something that I just kind of go with at this point. A giant flying bear, comes into my imagination. I'm not like, let's not do that. I'm more like, how exactly would that work in terms of like just suspending reader disbelief, and what would that do in terms of how would that be useful for a novel? As for the weird Thoreau, I think Thoreau was kind of the weird Thoreau. But it's quite an interesting thing that when you get involved with rewilding your yard and you also have environmental themes in your fiction, people try to find kind of the equivalent, like, how can I piece these things together in such a way to describe what this person is doing. And it is true that in a lot of nature writing, there's this ecstatic sense, being out in the wilderness and describing it, almost a spiritual sense, that's very akin to kind of a speculative or a fiction kind of narrative.